I learned I was inheriting $11 million on a morning that was neither truly blue nor truly gray. Above the city hung a thin scarf of cloud, as if someone had tied silk loosely around its neck, soft enough, secret enough. I sat in an oak-paneled office across from attorney Benjamin Harrison. The room smelled of polished wood and old paper. The wall clock punctuated the thoughts I hadn't yet arranged. "Mr. James Wallace, your uncle, left you his entire estate," Benjamin said, voice low, dry, exact. "He amended the will 3 months ago after you two reconnected." A thick, sealed envelope lay before me. At the last page, a handwritten letter. Uncle James's hand slanted slightly, steady. "Money is only a tool. Don't let it teach you to count. Let it teach you to choose." I traced the ink with a fingertip and slid through summers on his estate. Dew-wet lawn under the porch, the high-ceilinged library, the smell of old paper. He rarely used the word teach, but his life was a lesson in choosing what land to keep, which investments to delay, which people to trust. I signed the stack with a slight tremor, not because of the number, because choose had suddenly acquired physical weight. Outside, the wind carried rain and faintly a metallic thread like a freshly tuned string. I called Eric. "I'm coming home early," I said, making my voice bright. "I have very, very big news." At his end came a messy bed of sound, voices, music, the clink of glasses. "I'm in the middle of something," Eric said quickly. "New project. Don't expect a big reaction. I'm in the zone." The call shut like a door that closes itself. I stood under the awning, breathing in first rain to steady my pulse. Then I turned into the corner jewelry shop, not to flaunt anything, but to hold something solid for what was shifting inside. I chose a men's watch, round face, lean hands, black leather strap. "For someone who keeps saying time is the primary material of art," I joked to the clerk. She gave a polite laugh. I was the only one who actually smiled. The freeway shone like glass. The pop song on the radio was too bright for my mood, tilting toward hope. I imagined walking in, Eric closing his eyes, holding out his hand, me placing the box in his palm, then telling him. In that imagining, there was the familiar, arm around shoulder, the tilt of his head that used to make me feel safe in the small apartment with canvases still leaning against the wall. A pickup with a trailer wobbled in the next lane. The damp light made everything slide, even thought. I eased off the gas. Then the trailer jerked like a hooked fish, whipped its tail, and carved an invisible diagonal across the road. Things happened in a fist of sound, tires screaming, metal tearing, an airbag detonating, the seatbelt locking hard across my sternum. The watch box popped open. The watch rolled like a thick drop of rain, flashing beneath a burst of brake lights. At the edge of my vision, a billboard flashed by. "Protect what matters most." Then darkness clamped down, dense and cold. When I surfaced, antiseptic drowned every other smell. The ceiling light blurred, then gathered into white flowers. Slowly, a woman's voice, soft, steady. The badge on the scrubs, Sarah Winters, RN. "You were in a crash on the 65, Sarah said, checking the lines. "You were out 2 days. You're going to be okay. We're here." "My husband, Eric," I hauled each word up from my chest. "We called your emergency contact," she said, swapping IV bags. "We left several messages." "He hasn't come?" A beat of silence. The professional dialect of truths not yet fit to say. "Maybe he's on his way," she said gently. "Rest." Dr. Foster came in, reciting like a mathematician reading verse. 3 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, 1 open fracture plated with screws, a few dozen stitches. "And you're lucky," he ended. "The tow truck driver didn't make it." "Lucky," snagged in my throat like grit. I dialed Eric. Ring, then stop. I texted, "Crash, Mercy General, call me." The read receipt turned blue. Meaningless. Day 2, Sarah spooned porridge while making small talk from the country of days that are no longer normal. The sun should come out. The lobby flowers switched to asters. Someone brought cake for the night shift. Anyone at home we should notify, she asked. No, I said, then corrected, just Eric. Day 3, a message. Heard about the accident. I'm tied up on a breakthrough project. Will come by when the noise dies down. I read it 7 times, hunting for an exclamation mark. None. The words stood still, cold and clean as unprimed canvas. I didn't sleep that night. Pain has its own way of waking the rooms you want to delay. I could hear Eric's old riff about the third light, not from lamp or sky, but the light that appears when you place a thing exactly right in space. I thought of myself, here, placed off by inches from everything supposedly important. Morning, Sarah set a tablet by the bed. Go easy, she warned. I skimmed email, bank alerts, scattered well wishes, a note from Benjamin. When you're strong enough, we'll sign a few protective authorizations. No rush. I idled on social media, an old rare habit, and saw a new photo. Eric at Artemis Gallery, champagne in hand. Caption, New Beginnings. Posted 2 days ago. I called. A club beat thumped in the background. I'm in the hospital, I said, slow and clear. 7 days. Where are you? A breath. I'm in the middle of something. Things are moving. I'll arrange it. You have time for new beginnings, but not 5 minutes to ask if your wife can breathe? The question jumped out the way a watch hand will jump when the axle snaps. The instant I heard myself, I knew something inside me had shifted place. We met under cold lights in a warehouse-turned-gallery. Eric's paintings weren't made to shock and awe. They looked like someone had trapped. The second light fell on a puddle and pinned it with paint. He said, Art is how you look at the world differently, especially when the world won't look back. I smiled like a person who believes in sentences. We drank beer in the white space, cold cans, hands touching by accident that wasn't accidental. He talked color. I talked cadence. Both of us talked money like weather. It comes, it goes, it comes again. The first married year, we were broke and happy. The apartment was small, canvases leaned. The dining table was a borrowed fold-out. I took a copywriter job at an ad agency. Eric painted late, slept late, eyes red like winter dawn. We counted each bill, then laughed before bed, the laugh of 2 people keeping each other afloat. Happiness wasn't weightless. It carried the heft of choosing between the electric bill and a decent meal. That weight kept things held. Year 3, his 6th painting sold. Year 4, he had a modest following, enough for a shared studio showcase. Year 5, rejection letters thickened. I learned to hear an envelope being torn without seeing whose hands were tearing it. I learned to say, it's okay, they don't understand your light, while moving money for paint, canvas, stretchers, studio rent. Unmapped networking weeks became normal, starting with a talk with curator X, ending in the breath of alcohol and the erosion of fatigue. I turned into the soft pillow for failure to fall on. When I asked questions, I got, you don't understand creative process. It doesn't have a roadmap. I didn't argue. Love often is consenting to a misaligned schedule. One wakes while the other sleeps. One believes while the other wobbles. In the linen closet was a small wooden box tucked beside seldom opened things. Inside, a newborn bracelet, a tiny knit cap, a blurred photo. 17 years earlier, I was 18. First love burning, first fear burning hotter. A decision needed a signature from someone much older than me. I held the baby once. Someone said, it's time. The photo was taken like a receipt for existence. I wrapped it all in the box, placed it deep, and thought I had locked a door. Time dusted over it. When Eric moved in, the box was still there. I never pictured a day someone else might open it, but apartment life has innocent habits of rummaging, weekend tidying, swapping blankets for seasons. I thought we kept it here. I don't know when or if he saw it. I only know that later the box, in a strange way, became a shadow hung over the anchor of our marriage. We spoke in buds of sentences that closed up tight. Studio this month? After I sell the new piece? Loan due next week? Got it. I tried to suggest a plan B. Eric laughed. You work in advertising. Don't sell me your fear. The next day, he sent a sketch, a trembling ring of light on deep blue, captioned, "You're the rim that keeps me afloat." I hung it at the entry, as if a framed apology could outlast a spoken one. But framed apologies don't walk hospital corridors. They don't replace the sound of running feet. The marriage's shadow had a smell. At first, fresh paint and hope cut with alcohol. Later, metal, the cold coin smell from a stranger's pocket. I used to excuse him with the logic of craft. Artists need a zone, need to disappear to catch a thin thread. But reasons, repeated past their prime, turn into a thin blanket thrown over a twisted frame. Eric talked a lot about the third light, the light born when a thing is placed just right. I love that idea. Maybe because my work with words does something similar. Place a word in the exact spot in someone's head so it glows. We met at the faith that light matters more than frame. Gradually I learned, the frame decides the light. When Uncle James was hospitalized with heart trouble, I went. He'd thinned, his eyes still held the lamp against wind. We talked books, land, things we never named like my father, his brother, and the loud quiet of their split. He didn't teach. He asked, "What are you reading this season?" A simple bridge across an old ravine. 3 months later, he died. I didn't cry at once. I counted letters, half-told stories, unanswered questions. Then Benjamin called. You've heard the rest. The letter. Money is a tool. The leather watch. The fine rain. The blowout on the freeway. The billboard. Protect what matters most. And the sudden dark. When I opened my eyes in the hospital, the first thing I counted wasn't the money. It was the absences. Days at Mercy General were long, not because of hours, but because of the waiting. Waiting for meds to settle, for rounds to make their rounds, for a text to light, for the 3-knock rhythm I knew by heart. Every wait had a smell, antiseptic, sweat, latex, sometimes reheated food wafting from the break room microwave. First sign, Eric didn't come. Second sign, his tone on the phone, the voice of someone orchestrating a launch, not a husband sprinting to squeeze his wife's hand in the ICU. Third sign, the new beginnings photo with a smile placed just so. Eyes, corners of mouth, chin. I had once called that face home. It was now a wall. I looked again at my own text. I need you. Blue. Bright enough no one could say I hadn't said it. Meaningless enough to make me feel like a billboard by the highway. Hung there. Look if you want. Benjamin arrived with his briefcase like a block of metal that possessed ethics. He spoke in the key of someone who has watched too many hunts for fresh money bags. We need minimal legal fencing around the assets, at least until you leave the hospital, not because I think you're weak, because the world loves to assume a woman in a hospital bed is. I nodded. I signed. I read every line as if translating a new language. Legalese, risk, close the window before the storm. He sketched how the assets would sit in trust, how powers of attorney would auto-null if anyone but me signed, how every change would require video confirmation. I grasped it slowly. Ease also needs structure. Freedom is not the absence of frame, it's the right frame. That evening, I called Melanie, an old agency friend. Have you seen Eric? Heard whispers about a deal. Supposed to be game-changing, she said, voice dodging. I heard a sigh at the end, the sound of someone who knows more than she wants to say. Before we hung up, she added, If you need me, say so. I did, but not yet. I spent the evening with Jessica, the hospital psychologist. She didn't soothe or judge. She asked, If you had to name your state, what word? Waiting, I said. Waiting for whom? For me, I answered after a long beat. We both laughed, the right laugh in the right place. While swapping bags, Sarah said, "When you're ready to try sitting up, I'll help. Sitting will hurt, but it's straighter." That was how she talked about more than posture. On a sheet Jessica gave me, I wrote one line in the center: "I am no one's shadow." I left space beneath it for a second sentence, a line I didn't have yet, but knew would come. Night. A blocked number rang. No caller ID. "I can help you get through this cleanly," a man's voice slid across a polite surface. A few sentences, and I knew the type, practiced at brokering, selling moving on as a package. "Thanks," I said. "Women don't often trust a move on proposed by a man. We prefer a straight line." I hung up. Sarah winked. "We should embroider that on a pillow." At first light, Benjamin brought another piece. Someone, his name, came to my office last week to ask how to keep assets in the family in case of a medical situation. I declined. I kept the camera. He placed an iPad on the tray, didn't press play. "If you're ready, the next time he comes, we roll. Or we invite him." I felt the pieces click in my head. Bait, a legal camera, an attorney, a nurse, a psychologist in the hall tracking my breathing, not his. And me at the center of my own life. I nodded. "We invite." Melanie agreed to loan her phone. The text would go as if from her. "I know about the inheritance. Morgan's awake and remembers everything. Handle it before she talks." Language Eric understands. Risk, benefit, timing. No red hearts. "When?" Melanie typed. "Now," I answered, looking at the wall clock. 5 minutes later, her phone pinged. "We'll handle today." "Delete this." Sarah smoothed the blanket, directing stage with a gentle hand. Time to sit up. She stacked pillows. Pain chewed the old spot like an animal of habit. I clenched my teeth. Upright, I caught my reflection in the med cabinet glass. Narrow shoulders, pupils brighter than yesterday. "We'll do what we need to," Jessica said, laying a palm on the rail, a frame drawn around me. "When we're done, you'll write the second line." The plan was simple, clean as a good layout. A hospital camera in the corner framing the door and tray, an attorney outside the shot, ready to enter, a nurse who knew and wouldn't leave, a psychologist in the hall to watch my breath, mine, not his, and bait cold enough to glint. At 1:30, there it was, 3 knocks, my once favorite rhythm, like testing a brush before it hits canvas. The door opened. Eric came in, blazer cut better than any he'd owned, new shoes, hair sculpted with intent. A faint cologne, the kind of scent a rising artist chooses not to drown paint, but to announce a new tear. He stopped at the foot of the bed and slid off his sunglasses, his gaze moved by old logic, monitor, drip, me. His face wore a varnish of just enough concern. "Morgan," he drew out the O. "You're awake." I said. "I'm awake." He motioned toward the hall. A young woman stepped in, pausing in the doorway as if unsure where to stand in a gallery. Dark hair, dark dress, hand clenched on a small bag. Her eyes skimmed my face, paused a beat at the cheekbone, then sidled behind Eric's shoulder. "You remember Vanessa?" Eric oiled it. "My cousin's daughter. We met at Tom's wedding. I invited her to visit." He slid a sheaf from his inner pocket. "Your lawyer says you're not fully lucid to manage finances. These are temporary authorizations. I filled them in. You just need to sign. Save you the trouble." I laughed, the sound of locks all clicking at once. "And you, literally, will save me from everything." He arched a brow. "Responsibility, Morgan. I always think of you." "That's why you staged New Beginnings the week I was in the ICU, I said evenly, "and changed our locks and blocked my accounts." I turned to Vanessa. "And you, do you know the story you're standing in?" Vanessa looked at him, then at me. Her mouth worked. She opened her bag, drew out a worn envelope and a photo, the old blur. An 18-year-old girl, eyes swollen from crying, holding a swaddled infant. The striped curtains, the daisy-shaped sconce, The ash-gray sweater I'd borrowed from an aunt. I knew the lighting like an old map. "I looked for you a long time," she said, voice cracking. "The photo went with me from the adoption center. I didn't know who you were, only that you were the person who held me once. He said you wanted to see me but were afraid of being rejected, so he'd be the bridge." I believed him. "She's the proof," Eric cut in, returning to his slick cadence, "that the estate should stay in the family. If you, Morgan, aren't capable, someone with blood ties, trustworthy, can help." "Blood ties," I repeated, letting the word blood ring. I sat a little straighter to meet his eyes. "Nice choice of words." Sarah took a small step toward my head, not speaking, just tilting the room's temperature toward the patient. "Good," a baritone came from the window. Benjamin stood, pulled his chair into frame. "Let the grown-ups hear what another grown-up said in my office last week." He set the iPad down and pressed play. On screen, Eric and another young woman seated before a desk, speaking cleanly about worst-case scenarios, moving quickly before assets shift to a foundation, establishing a legal next of kin. Eric held a partially filled death certificate, narrating a critical medical situation like an installation. "Enough." Eric snatched for the iPad. Sarah stepped half a pace, her hand resting at my wrist as if to say, "We control the air, not him." He halted, jawline twitching. Benjamin stopped the video, put it away. "We still haven't stated the center," I said, turning to Vanessa. "You're not a cousin, you're my daughter." Not an explosion, just a clack, a piece dropping into its slot. Vanessa pressed her lips together, looked at the photo, then at me. Tears didn't fall, they withdrew. She nodded, tiny, not to ask permission, but to acknowledge. Benjamin inked the outline like a drafter finishing a contour. "Your uncle's will includes a clause. If you die without a child, most of the estate goes to named charities. If you have direct descendants, the assets remain in the family. A rushed marriage to a distant cousin is merely step one. The obvious step two. Once the mother-child link emerges, which it would, he, as husband, can exert leverage over her share." "Faster," Eric muttered, "and fewer headaches to manage the foundation." Sarah's brow folded hard enough to make a sound. "Manage by exploiting a girl's wish to find her mother, forging documents, and walking a hospitalized wife up to the lip of a signature?" Eric turned to me, dropped defense, reclaimed the performer. "You know me. Don't make this a cheap tragedy. I needed a launch. You always pull me down with your fear." "And you," I said, "didn't spare 5 minutes to ask if the person gasping on a machine was okay." 2 hospital security officers stood at the door, polite and solid. "I'm sorry," one said. "We need you to step outside to discuss certain allegations." He reached for Vanessa's hand. "Let's go." She pulled back and moved half a step toward my bed. In her eyes, a 17-year-old question finally out loud. "Do I have a place in this room?" I nodded. No smile, just a nod. They led Eric out. He glanced back once, his face stripped to the plywood. Some arrogance, some fear, a lot of hollow. The door closed. The room shrank to its original size. Sarah set a tissue box on the tray without pushing it at anyone. Benjamin shut his case like an artist cleaning the table after a performance. "I'm sorry," Vanessa said, voice like someone who has swum a river. "I didn't know." "You just learned," I said, "and you chose the right side." I pointed to the chair by my bed. "Sit. From here on, we reset the language." Later, Detective Jennings stopped by, questions spare and paced. I told it straight, the crash, the text, the gallery photo, the call, the confrontation, the old photo. She wrote in even lines with spaces for breathing. "We'll move it forward," she said. "I can't promise timing, but I promise your file won't live at the bottom of the stack." That night, Benjamin called. "The restraining order is signed. The DA may propose a deal if he pleads and names the document ring." Sarah touched the back of my hand, a small word written in skin. "Safe." Vanessa dozed in the chair, head on her arm, her breathing the sound of a room settling. I looked at the page taped at the foot of my bed. Beneath, "I am no one's shadow," I added. I turned the light on. After the door closed on Eric, the room shrank to its true size, just enough for 4 women to remain. Me in the bed, Vanessa in the chair, Sarah at the headboard, Jessica leaning on the frame. No one hurried words. I heard the beeps, and under them another pulse not from any machine, a heartbeat learning its own name. "Would you like to stay a while?" I asked, afraid my voice might harden. "You" leapt past my throat, straight from chest to air. She nodded, still holding the photo like a fragile piece of evidence. Sarah poured water. Jessica pulled her chair nearer, palm lightly on the bed rail, a sign that silence should be allowed to work. It lasted long enough for the words in my head to line up. "That photo? From the agency?" "Yes," Vanessa said, eyes on the 18-year-old. "They gave it to me when I turned 18. If you want to search, this is all we have." "And you searched," I said, not a question. She smiled, small and sad. "In every clumsy way, typing the hospital from the caption everywhere, tracking down old volunteers, sifting groups for people hunting roots. I didn't have your name. I only had a face." She touched the blurred place where my sleepless eyes still begged the lens. "Please remember." "He found me first," she added, voice shaking. "Said, she wants to meet you, but she's afraid that he'd be the bridge." I believed him, because people always want to believe the thing they've dreamed too long. Benjamin returned, careful enough that even the click of his case sounded ethical. "We'll do DNA today," he said, proposing it like a rite of acknowledgement. Not to discover the truth is right here, but so the paper world can't say no. Sarah nodded, fetched the kit. Vanessa tilted her cheek the way someone obeys an ancient custom. I did too. The swab against the inner cheek felt like respect. In one small motion, a history changed lanes. "Would you like to call your mom?" Jessica asked, offering a durable rope. "Yes," Vanessa said, "but I'm scared." Sarah shook her head and smiled the nurse's smile of a woman who has seen more rooms than I've had sleepless nights. "Fear means you're facing the right direction." We called. Mom lit the screen. When she answered, Vanessa hit speaker. "Mom, I met her," she said, and the whole room leaned toward the phone. A heart's breadth later came a voice, warm, steady, not performing a miracle. "What's one thing you want to tell me about her?" She says less than I imagined, but each line sounds honed, Vanessa said, choosing words while looking at me, and she looks at me like she's kept a place for me in her heart for 17 years. "Then it's her," the voice said. "Do you want me to speak to her?" Vanessa handed me the phone. A lifetime of advertising had not trained me for this opening line. "Hello," the woman said. "I'm Diana, Vanessa's mom. Thank you for bringing her into the world." That thank you was not a laurel I thought I deserved. It was a blanket over the thinnest part of my life, letting me breathe deeper. "Thank you," I managed, gripping the sheet, "for bringing her to this day." We didn't set dates or make vows. We put down a marker. "When the DNA's back, meet us on the porch," I said, and laughed at my reflex to invite people to a porch I had only just acquired. Diana laughed too. "We'll bring cake." Benjamin updated the law. The restraining order signed. The petition to void Vanessa and Eric's marriage filed that day. Not finished, but moving. "The DA wants to know if you'll share last night's settlement text," he said. Of course, I answered, forwarding it. The small cloud of the sedative bottle drifted past. "Not enough for a criminal charge yet," he said, "but the financial conspiracy is solid." By evening, Vanessa had dozed off in the chair. I pulled a thin blanket over her, my first use of a verb I'd waited 17 years to practice, cover. Jessica sat a while, no notes, no insight. "Tomorrow you'll be more tired than today," she said. but it'll be the kind of tired that means something. Before sleep, I looked at the page at my bed. Beneath I am no one's shadow, I wrote, slow but without shaking. And you, if you want to be, are the new chapter. In the morning, I'd let Vanessa write it again in her own hand. Next morning, the city was rinsed, like someone sobering up. Eric was led into arraignment. The prosecutor read the list like a catalog. Fraud, forged documents, account intrusion, bigamy, conspiracy. Benjamin filed a neat stack for me. The office video, the new beginnings check-in, the will handle today text, the search warrant inventory of a sedative bottle in my name purchased 3 days before the crash, and the email login using First Pet's name, which he knew because he'd once painted my cat as a gift. The judge looked up once. Any objection to the admissibility of the video? Eric's lawyer spoke a long sentence that meant no. The gavel, bail denied, restraining order remains. Back at the hospital, I signed 2 forms. One authorizing Benjamin to work with the DA, one petition to void Vanessa's marriage to Eric. The DNA came that afternoon, 99.99%. No one remembered to drink water. Vanessa held me and cried the way a midnight rain falls, soft and thorough. Sarah pressed the bandage where she'd swabbed, sealing the moment, confirmed. Day 3, the prosecutor floated a deal. If Eric pled and named the document ring, they'd recommend 8 years. I felt neither glee nor letdown. I saw a straight line drawn. Act, consequence. Benjamin asked if I objected. I shook my head. And the bottle? Still under investigation, but the rest is enough either way. From jail, Eric wrote. The hand was familiar, the sentences elegant like the notes he'd write after a sale. I have realized one errors when pushed to a wall. Please see me in the third light, the light of forgiveness. I folded the letter and did not reply. Forgiveness is not a waiver. It's the arm you pull out of the rope around your own neck. News leaked. The gallery that hosted New Beginnings posted something cold. Artemis Gallery is suspending collaboration with artist E, pending the outcome of legal proceedings. People who had name-dropped him over wine learned to change the subject as fast as a playlist. I had neither the time nor the need to track the social gravity of his fall. I was busy pulling my life back into orbit. Another call, the familiar voice type. We can make this win-win. You drop, he restores, your image stays generous. I gave the pillow line. Thanks, but we prefer straight lines. I set the phone down and returned to my list. Discharge papers, PT schedule, the transfer of assets into a trust with temporary guardianship. A week later, the sentence was read. 8 years. The restraining order extended. My accounts were restored and placed in the safer structure. Eric glanced at me once as the officer's hand touched his elbow. His face was bare. No launch pad, no third light. I didn't hold the look. I looked at Vanessa. We nodded, like 2 people noting a door has shut, not to lock us in, but so others can open. I left the hospital under a white noon. The road to Uncle James's place unfurled like silk. Pale fields greening, young maples, a small lake at the hill's end. The old house greeted us with a wide porch. Benjamin had a ramp built over the steps. A downstairs room turned into a temporary bedroom. The house spoke softly. Take your time. Routines were easy, aerobic for the soul. Morning physical therapy, noon laps along the porch. Me with a cane, Vanessa matching pace. Afternoon with my feet up in a book. Sunday movie night even when it wasn't Sunday. I marked each day with a faint pencil line on a porch post. Not to boast, to remember, the body and the will need conversation, not commands. Diana and Mark came the first weekend. They brought no questions. They brought food. Dinner was simple and enough. Garden salad, squash soup, apple pie. We held a place for her until today, Diana said, taking my hand. The rest is up to you two. Something in my chest loosened one notch. You see, it had been a long time since up to you meant freedom rather than abandonment. I hung the 17-year-old photo in the hall between kitchen and living room, not to self-harm with memory, but to look until it dulled. Beneath it, I propped a wooden plaque with Uncle James's line, "Money is a tool." In chalk, I added, "What it does depends on the hand that holds it." Benjamin opened a new file, the James Wallace Second Chances Fund. Our first bylaws: support single mothers, offer counseling on open adoptions, scholarships for nurses studying clinical psych. I added a last line like a small label affixed to every decision. Money is only a tool. Use it to open doors, not lock people out. Vanessa enrolled in a psych prep program. At night, she shared attachment theory, trauma, the family scripts we act from, the way love and fear pen our roles. "I want to be a map reader," she said, "not a route dictator." "Good," I answered. "And remember, don't save anyone but yourself." She laughed. "We should hang that in the counseling room." From Highway Patrol came word. The crash site was cleared. A non-evidentiary personal item belonged to me. In the storage room, an officer set a scuffed velvet box on the table. Inside, the black leather watch. The hands were stopped at 9:02. "Likely the axle broke on impact," he said. "Leave it," I answered. Back home, I set it beneath Uncle James's photo in a small glass case. Every time I passed, the plaque's words reflected faintly on the watch face. I slipped a scrap of paper under the base. "Returning you your 9th hour." Some things are only measured once they stop, like the length of a life that has turned for home. The fund ran its first laps like a car fresh from the shop, careful but pointed. Our first file was Lynn, 19, pregnant, kicked out by a father who said, "You're on your own." She wanted to train as a nursing aide. We approved tuition, part of 6 months' rent, and a connection to a young mother's network. When Lynn got her student badge, she smiled small. I handed her a hardbound notebook. "Don't write well, just write enough. A year from now, she'll open it and see someone who went farther than she'd believed." Haithu's file, a couple in their 40s, scared of the edges, of being asked back, of being judged. Vanessa designed a small workshop in the bridge room, our name for the big living room. A social worker, a birth mother who chose an open plan, a woman who found her mother at 28, no slides, a circle and a teapot. At the end, Thu whispered, "I'm no longer afraid of the words birth mother. I'm afraid that if I don't learn, I'll hurt someone without knowing." My father, the man who didn't know what to say on our first call, showed up with a bookshelf he'd made. "For the library," he said, knuckles tapping the joinery. He stood before the glass doors looking out over the slope to the lake and exhaled like setting a stone down. "I'm sorry I let you get so good at silence," he said. "I used the silence for writing," I answered. "Maybe it wasn't wasted." Sarah launched a communication skills class for nurses working with trauma patients, funded by the scholarship in her name. I spoke for 15 minutes, not with recovery numbers, but with the story of a hand on a bed rail, right on time. "Technique saves lives," I said. "Gesture saves people." She laughed from the corner, eyes wet. "Don't make me cry in front of the class." "Crying," I said, "is a soft skill." I wrote, not slogans for others, but the first chapters of a noir-leaning novel, money as the lamp on character, kinship as the exit path. The page no longer threatened, it felt like a clean room waiting for things to be placed. Jessica read chapter 1. "You've stopped writing reports," she said. "You're telling a story." I nodded, heart beating even like an instrument freshly tuned. One storm blackout evening, Melanie brought a cream-colored typewriter. Keys clacked in candlelight. I typed a letter to last year's me. "If you're still in the hospital reading this, you will walk, not alone." Vanessa suggested a time capsule. Letters from me, from her, from Diana, from Sarah. We buried them behind the house and planted a lavender bush on top. A little plaque, "In case of need, dig." The last Sunday of each month, the porch opened. No tickets. People arrived with a story. Benjamin explained wills in a language no one feared. Detective Jennings showed how to ask without making someone defend themselves. Diana taught crisp pie crust. At night, we burned a box of letters titled, "What I Wish I Could Say to the Person Who Hurt Me But Won't Send." The smoke lifted in thin blue, not deliverance, just setting down. If you're hearing this on your commute, while washing dishes, or in some hospital waiting room, 3 things before the music fades and we stand up. First, you are not a shadow in anyone's story. It took me years to write that sentence, big and centered. If you need a ritual, get a blank page. Write your sentence in the middle. Maybe it's, "I am the narrator." Maybe something else. Tape it where you pass each day. When the pain returns, read it. When doubt returns, read it aloud. Second, light doesn't arrive by itself. It appears when you place things in their right places. In the hospital, Sarah put a hand on a rail, right moment. Benjamin placed a camera, right angle. Jessica asked a question, right pace. Vanessa set a photo on the tray, right day. None of them saved me. They helped me place myself back at the center of my own life. If you're lost, find one small right, the right person to call, the right paper to sign, the right door to lock, the right window to open. Third, money is a tool, and so is time. Uncle James's sentence on the mantle isn't ornamental, it's a filter. Run each decision through it. Which door does this money open? Which does it close? Will this hour be lamp or shadow? If money falls into your hands, inheritance, project, luck, try using it like a spade, trench water, turn soil, carve a path for others. Don't use it like a stone to pin someone down, a call for anyone listening. If you're spotting signs of betrayal in your plot, the "I'll come when things quiet down," the curated beginnings with you erased, the authorizations dropped in your weakest hour, trust your instinct. Instinct isn't drama, it's experience stored in bone. Tell one safe person, then a second. Build legal guardrails even if you don't think you're that kind of person. Clear healthcare proxies, an emergency contact you actually trust, basic protective structures for assets. Freedom isn't no frame, it's the right frame. Keep records. Not to live inside footage, but so the truth has a page when needed. Dates, times, messages, who was there, what they said. When you sit across from someone like Detective Jennings, you'll have short, precise answers. If there's a wooden box in your closet, any box, an old story, a wound, a 17-year-old baby, grant yourself the right to open it or not. There's no moral timeline. But if you open it, set hands around you first. A nurse, a counselor, a friend, a decent lawyer, a porch. In confrontation, prioritize safety. We had a legal camera, witnesses, security right outside. Courage isn't walking into a room alone, it's knowing who to stand with. Start a fund of your own. You don't need 11 million. A fund can be a shoebox of grocery vouchers for the single mom next door. A fund can be one lunch a month reading strangers' letters and answering with, "It's okay." A fund can be a bench under a tree carved with, "For those who find their way back in their own way." Keep one artifact of your own. Mine is a watch stopped at 9:02. It reminds me, sometimes stopping doesn't kill time. It saves a life. Yours might be the bus ticket from the day you left, the first bill you paid with your own money, a hospital photo. Put it where you can see it, not to worship, just to remember. For those on the other side of stories, adoptive parents, onlooking friends, colleagues who suspected then fell quiet, don't fear stepping into the frame. People like Diana and Mark don't take someone's place. They make more room. People like Melanie don't lose the right to speak because they were silent for a while. "I'm here" is a stake driven into a river. For the systems, hospitals, galleries, law offices, maybe none of you are listening, but if one of you is, please don't only fix processes. Build more porches, a quiet corner for those just told they're alive, a ready DNA kit for reunions, a hospital proxy form written in human, a legal camera button anyone can press, a 2-hour training for frontline staff on recognizing civilized coercion disguised as kindly settlement. When the music cuts, here are small assignments, not because I love homework, but because small things saved me. 1. Write your name in the center of a page, big, clear. Under it, write the sentence you want to believe. Tape it by the bed. 2. Make one hard call. If they don't answer, leave one line. I need to say something when you have a minute. Don't explain. Cast it. Go do something else. 3. Open your closet. If there's a box, set it on the table. Don't open it yet. Let light touch it. 4. Print a simple healthcare proxy. Put the name of the person you trust. Send them a photo. If I'm hospitalized, I want you here. 5. Schedule your open porch. The kitchen table will do. One time, each month. Whoever needs it comes 1 to 6. When someone says, don't make a big deal, ask, big for whom? 7. Ask a question that doesn't make the other person defend themselves. Wait, count to 10 in your head. Let them hear themselves. If you want the epilogue, Vanessa got into the degree program and interns at a counseling center. Sarah carries her soft skills class to other departments. Benjamin sometimes sits on the porch corner explaining trusts by talking about coffee. Detective Jennings drops by with ugly but excellent cookies. Diana taught me not to burn a pie crust. My father built another bookshelf. This time the joints are perfect. As for me, I write, I plant, I answer letters. I decline invitations that aren't mine and accept the ones that are. I keep the stopped watch at 9:02 under Uncle James's photo. I touch the glass each night like roll call, still here. I walk with Vanessa to the lake. We leave 2 parallel tracks. Some days the water licks them away. We walk again. Endings aren't gavels. They're the ping of a spoon on a teacup, the scuff of a chair drawn closer, the scratch of a pen on the page at the foot of a bed. On my page, the first line reads, I am the narrator. Beneath it, in Vanessa's hand, and I am the new chapter. I added one more, small and neat. We continue.